When a large structure fails, the collapse is rarely a sudden impact. Usually, the foundation has been quietly eroding out of sight for years. In clinical psychology, that hidden erosion often takes the form of financial infidelity. The literature defines this as purposeful financial deceit, occurring between two people who operate under an expectation of mutual, honest communication. When researchers ask individuals directly if they have kept a financial secret from their partner, the self-recording rate is remarkably low. Only 27% admit to the behavior. Yet, when researchers shift the methodology and ask those exact same people if they have engaged in specific mechanical acts of deception, the number doubles. 53% of subjects execute behaviors that perfectly fit the clinical definition. These behaviors range from hiding receipts, skimming cash out of joint savings, to lying about the price paid. This divergence between self-perception and actual behavior reveals a protective psychological mechanism. Individuals trivialize specific acts of deception to avoid cognitive dissonance, misjudging their own conduct. Therapists and financial planners often dismiss this deceit as a random communication failure or wave it away as normal couples fighting over money. The data tells a different story. Financial infidelity is a predictable, measurable outcome driven by specific dyadic management deficits and distinct personality profiles. To forecast this behavior, we can construct a predictor matrix. Building this model requires systematically peeling back the layers of independent variables, from broad demographics down to systemic relationship management, and finally, individual personality traits. Effective treatment addresses the systemic architecture of the relationship rather than focusing solely on the individual secret. The unreliability of self-reporting becomes obvious when we isolate the cohort of subjects who explicitly claimed they kept zero financial secrets. Looking at this honest group, 14% admitted to lying about prices paid. Another 14% deliberately hid spending on their children. Further down, 11% claimed sale prices for full-price items, and 11% physically hid receipts. These subjects mentally classify these specific secrets as trivial. By doing so, they exempt themselves from the heavy, loaded label of infidelity. For practitioners conducting intake assessments, asking a client if they keep financial secrets is useless. You have to query specific mechanical behaviors to get an accurate baseline. With the behavioral baseline established, we can test the demographic variables that professionals traditionally assume drive financial conflict. Table 2 details financial infidelity across demographics. Marital status, gender, and ethnicity show no significant bearing on deceit. However, the age block reveals a drop in rates among adults in their 20s and those over 60. But when we visualize the data for income and residential area, the results are flat. Whether a couple lives in a rural town or an urban center, or whether they make $25,000 or $86,000, the likelihood of financial secrecy remains constant. Blaming financial deception on demographic strain or socioeconomic pressure is a lazy diagnostic crutch. Because financial infidelity is clearly not a symptom of demographic categorization, we are forced to look deeper at the internal mechanisms of the dyad. The first true predictor of deceit is the systemic architecture of how the couple manages their cash flow. This comparison visualizes the disparity in management styles. Couples who operate with a rigid, established budget have an infidelity rate of 20%. Couples who pay bills haphazardly as they come in see that rate jump to 28%. Furthermore, dyads who maintain entirely separated individual accounts correlate with much higher rates of financial deceit compared to those using purely joint management. The disorganization doesn't happen in a vacuum. It originates in the psychological profiles of the individuals. We can identify this by mapping the subjects against the Big Five personality traits. This correlation matrix reveals a striking isolation. Extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, and openness show no statistically significant link to financial deceit. Conscientiousness is the sole predictive trait. Clinically, a subject with low conscientiousness exhibits high impulsivity, a lack of dependability, and chronically low organizational skills. The model connects. Low conscientiousness generates unbudgeted, impulsive spending. That spending immediately threatens the stability of the dyad, necessitating secrecy to avoid the inevitable conflict. Once that initial mechanism of secrecy is established, financial infidelity rarely remains isolated within the relationship. As this diagram illustrates, spatial deception, lying about daily whereabouts, tightly clusters with financial deceit. When we introduce a third variable, the clustering intensifies. Couples who have experienced sexual or emotional marital affairs display significantly elevated rates of keeping financial secrets. Financial cheating operates as a trailing indicator of broader systemic deceit. Where you find unstructured hidden money, you usually find a broader deception contagion actively eroding the foundation of the dyad. This brings us to the ultimate cost of this phenomenon on global relationship health. Looking back at the top rows of this matrix, financial infidelity proves to be a highly reliable negative indicator. It tightly correlates with drops in both marital satisfaction and general life satisfaction. These numbers reflect findings in clinical literature, suggesting that patterns of withholding financial information often mirror a broader withdrawal of emotional vulnerability. Hiding money is a mechanism of controlling information. The offending partner alters their spouse's perception of reality to maintain an artificial power hierarchy. Beyond the immediate loss of capital, this behavior erodes dyadic cohesion and trust. For therapists and financial planners treating these couples, the data demands a specific clinical response. Practitioners cannot afford to focus therapy solely on resolving the specific financial secrets or mediating the surface-level arguments. Clinicians must target the underlying architecture. They need to institute rigid, structured financial planning and joint budgets to eliminate the physical space where impulsivity thrives. Simultaneously, the offending partner requires targeted treatment for the behavioral symptoms of low-trait conscientiousness, relying on structured, long-term accountability. This causal loop summarizes the complete predictive model. Low conscientiousness combined with unstructured finance enables impulsive spending. That impulsivity forces financial deceit, which inevitably results in lower marital and life satisfaction. Replacing unstructured impulsivity with observable dyadic systems is the only reliable clinical intervention for stopping financial infidelity.